Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. This week, I'll be speaking with Robin Corralez. Robin is the Global Senior Vice President of HR at PandaDoc, the leading all in one document flow automation platform. As a hands on, diversified human resource leader, Robin creates sustained value in fast paced, dynamic environments by building strong teams and identifying, assessing, and executing organizational initiatives that drive business success. In her role at PandaDoc, she is focused on building a talented organization that will help scale the business while maintaining its best workplace culture. Welcome to the show, Robin. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's really exciting to be here.
Great. So let's get started. So, Robin, as a woman in tech, can you share with us your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, my pleasure. I had a little bit of a roundabout way to get into technology. My career started in the printing industry, and I worked in print advertising for 12 years. And the entire time that I was there, I knew I wanted to get into advertising. I wanted to be more on the advertising side versus the publication side. And eventually made that dream a reality and moved into advertising, then making my way into advertising technology and
Mm.
eventually into a SaaS startup. So a
Oh,
little bit
wow.
unconventional way to get here, but made it here nonetheless.
No, that's great. And many people have that unconventional by accident way of getting into technology. So you're not alone. So, Robin, you're a clear leader in everything that you do. Can you share with us some of your best practices around building and leading great teams, especially for women?
Yes. So for me, I think that leadership really comes down to empathy and understanding the needs of the individuals that are on your team. And that's especially true for women. Um, when I look at my team, I work in human resources, so I have a team that is mostly comprised of females because HR typically is more, you have more females in human resources overall. But my team is comprised of about 90% females and 10% males.
Mhm.
And uh, when I think about how I lead that group, right? There's no one way to lead the entire team. Each person on my team is unique, has a unique set of needs, and has different circumstances. So I make a really solid effort to get to understand who the people are on my team and lead them according to how they need to be led. So, to just elaborate a little bit, there are people on my team who are relatively junior, and those individuals need more time, they need more attention, and they need more hand holding. They
Mhm.
also need more confidence building, right? So that they can know that they're making the right decisions. So it's not about over managing them, right? But it's about building the confidence in each of those individuals to set them on a path for success. Then I have people who are really senior, and the only thing they want from me or they need from me is to get things out of their way so that they
Mhm.
can do their best work. And I'm okay with that because as a leader, I believe my number one responsibility is to create an environment where they can be successful. So blocking and tackling, moving things out of their way. I hire really smart people who know what needs to be done, and my job is to help them accomplish that.
That's great. So I take from that, leadership comes for each person in a different flavor. So as you're leading your team, it's not one size fits all. Everybody needs a different level of leadership. So you give each one what they need. Now, does that give you how does that work in how you feel? Like, do you feel like it's taking a lot out of you when you're leading each team member differently? Or will the one size fits all be easier but not as effective?
So what a great question. um, I think it depends on the day. There are certainly
Mhm,
days where you have a trying individual on your team, and
mhm,
maybe you're having a bad day yourself, or you really just want to tell them what to do, right? Because you need to get something done. Um,
mhm,
but you know that in that moment, right, that it's going to pay off dividends if you manage them the way they need to be led
mhm,
instead, right? And you
mhm,
give them the opportunity to either to find their way instead of telling them what to do, or you give them the latitude and grace that they need in that day, even though it may take a lot out of you. So some days it can be pretty draining.
mhm,
Um, but in other days, it's really more rewarding, and it gives me energy to see my team grow and flourish because of how I am able to lead them and manage them. And there's no better reward than when somebody has a tough day, or someone has a unique challenge that I really either want to solve for them. Right? I'm a fixer. I'm like, I just want to
mhm,
go fix it,
mhm.
and to allow them to fix it themselves or help them fix something themselves, and for them to come back and say, you know what, thanks so much, right? Like, that's exactly what I needed in that day. And sometimes you get that, and that's the most rewarding part of being a leader.
Yeah, I love that you said that the more senior people just want a hands-off approach. They just want you to get things out of their way so that they can be productive. And that's so true. It's very true with my team. I give them the autonomy to, do their job individually, independently. And if they need anything, I'm always there for them. But if you micromanage them, they will leave. They're just not in that boat because they know what they're doing, their experience, they thrive on the autonomy.
100%. And sometimes that can be hard as a leader, where maybe you want to interject something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but you know that by doing so, you may deflate them, right? And so it's
Hmm.
like, all right, you know what? Let's, as long as the the outcome is there. Sometimes you have to refrain from interjecting too much into the actual roadmap to get to the outcome.
Hmm. Yeah, so true. So you're passionate also about mental health in the workplace every day. So not just during Mental Health Awareness Week, but all the time. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I had written an article last year during Mental Health Awareness Month, and it was very popular, became very popular during the pandemic for
Hmm.
companies to start doing mental health days, or providing individuals with one mental health day a month, or doing a mental health week, and shutting down for a period of time. And while I think that it's great that companies recognize that mental health is something that needs to be prioritized, I just don't think it's enough. Um, and so, when I think about mental health in the workplace, I think our obligations are so much more. And it's about creating an environment where teams feel okay to discuss mental health, where teams feel it's okay to have mental health challenges, uh,
Hmm.
and not just say, hey, you know what, we're going to go ahead and shut everything down for a week because people are burned out. I have had my share of recommendations to executives about expanding the time off for, whether it was Independence Day and expanding that to an extra, few days off,
Hmm.
or doing shutdowns during the winter holidays. But more than that, I think it's important for leaders to emulate um, the what we expect from a mental health, uh, the ability to talk about mental health in the workplace. So what
Hmm.
do I mean by that? There are times when I have had a bad day at work. I think we all have.
Hmm.
and and there are times where something maybe in my personal life was impacting my ability to operate effectively on a certain day or in a certain meeting. And as leaders, we're kind of expected to always be on, or at least that's the expectation I grew up with as a Gen Xer, always on. There is no bringing work into, or there's no bringing life into work. It is, the
Mhm.
two are separate. But one of the things that I practice is, if I'm not in the right headspace, uh, I will tell my team, I'm like, hey, look, you know what, today I'm not there, right? Like, I'm not in the best mental health space today, and
Mhm.
I need to take a break. Is there something that is urgent that we need to discuss? Can we put this off? Is this, and I ask for their permission to be able to do it versus just canceling on someone, or not showing up for a meeting. But at the same time, I let them know the reasons why. And that provides them with the permission to do the same, right? So by me saying, hey, look, you know what? Here's my challenges personally, and demonstrating that vulnerability, I'm giving them permission to do the same back with me. And that, I think, is a much healthier environment in which to work, that will help reduce the amount of burnout and stress that my team experiences, because before it gets to that burnout level, they will take the breaks that they need, and they will take care of themselves personally.
That is so good, but really you have to be vulnerable, and people are like, I can't say I need a mental day, are they going to think I'm crazy, or whatever. But that, being authentic and being real and showing that you're human too, and you can have a burnout time too, that you need to slow down and shut down, and that really gives them permission, like you said, to know that it's okay to have that, which is so important. Now, I wanted to add one thing is, having the days off is one thing, but really focusing on shutting down your electronics and your computers and your phones is even more critical. What do you think of that?
So I couldn't agree more. I just took a vacation. I'm fresh back from vacation today,
Hmm.
from a lovely trip to Mexico.
Hmm.
And I told my team before I left that I'm going to try to be the shining example of the vacations that I want each of you to take. I
Nice.
am not bringing my laptop with me.
Hmm.
And they were all like, what? And yeah, I didn't. I did not bring my
You're a
laptop
brave
with
soul.
and of course, in the time of COVID and all these other challenges, even my husband said, well, what are you going to do if we get stuck in Mexico and we can't get back
Hmm.
into the US? You're not going to be able to work. Like, I'll figure it out, right? But I'm not going to bring my laptop. I I don't think, I think that as a leader, it's my job to set the example. Admittedly, I checked Slack on my phone on occasion. I did it more for me to not be overwhelmed when I got back
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
1 million Slack messages. But I refrained from responding, right? So anything that was
Hmm.
there, I was like, you know what? I'm good. Somebody else is going to get this and it's going to be okay. There were no burning emergencies while I was gone. Anything that happened could be taken care of, was all taken care of. So um, I highly encourage my teams to completely shut down. I have been known to mute people on Slack. I don't know if you know that this is a thing, but Slack has a mute button where you can mute individuals. So I've had people on my team who go on vacation and would and still Slack, or will Slack me about things.
Hmm.
And I have literally muted them while they were on vacation. And I've told them, I am muting you. So I will not get any more of your Slack messages. I would suggest that you shut down the rest of the week and turn it off.
That's
Because
great.
and it wasn't that they were slacking me about anything that was an emergency, right? It was random, just random things to do with work. I'm like, it's not important, go enjoy
Hmm.
your time, right? Like,
And be
decompress.
present in your vacation. You really need to be
Yes,
present wherever you are.
yes, Yes, 100%.
So, what a great example. And you are really a true example of a great, great leader because, that's hard to do. I've owned my business for 32 years and take my laptop and don't know what a vacation looks like without answering emails. So I want to get to your place soon.
I was not always this way.
Hmm.
So, admittedly, it took me many years to learn to set boundaries.
Hmm.
And I think that's, one of the kind of going back to the, leading women, right? Women have a difficult time setting boundaries sometimes
Hmm.
when it comes to
Hmm.
work, right?
Hmm.
And and it took me a very long time to learn how to set proper boundaries with work and manage the expectations of others, because if you don't set boundaries for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And right before vacation, we have an executive offsite that's coming up, and literally the day before I left, my CEO said, "Hey, can you work on the agenda um, for the executive offsite?" And that is happening this week. And I said, "No."
Wow.
And
I'm
he's
so
like,
proud of you.
it's like there was a very, like silent moment in the
Hmm.
Zoom conversation. And I said, "I'm leaving for vacation tomorrow, and I can't be held accountable for any agenda that I would come up with while drinking margaritas by the beach."
That's awesome. That is awesome. What did he say?
He said, "Oh, yeah, right. Okay, that's cool." And he was totally fine with it, right?
Yeah.
But it would have been really easy for me to say, "Of course, I can work on
Hmm.
this agenda," and then carved time out of my vacation, because clearly I didn't have any meetings on the calendar for the next, 8 days.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
clearly could have done that, but I knew I needed to set that boundary right then and there, because if I didn't,
Then
he
it would start with that and keep going into the other days of your vacation.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. So I was like,
Hmm.
"No, all right." And and I even said to him, I during the conversation, I made the joke. I'm like, "Yay, I held my boundary," and he laughed about it.
Hmm. That's great, Robin. I really, really am impressed and very, very happy you shared this with our listeners because I think women need to do more of that. And the more we set our boundaries, the more other people will respect it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So culture is so critical to the success of an organization. Can you share some best practices that you've learned over the years to make positive shifts in the workplace culture?
Yeah. So, I think it comes down to just a handful of things. And I'm going to make it sound really easy, right? Clearly, there's a lot of companies out there that don't have good culture. So it's not that easy. But having a really clear set of vision and values for the company that are more than just words on paper, I think are absolutely key and fundamental, because culture is defined by how work gets done. It's not defined by what work gets done.
Hmm.
And the values help guide how work gets done. And so I think that is absolutely critical. I'm lucky enough to work for a startup that has a very founder-led culture,
Hmm. Hmm.
which means that it starts at the top, right? Um, there's there's no debating that our vision and values are not part of the company, because they are literally ingrained from the very top. So I think
Nice.
that's um, one key element. The second is really about transparency. So helping people understand where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and also where they stand in helping you get there, right? So how are
Hmm.
you helping me get there? How well are you doing around helping me get to where I'm going?
Hmm.
That's all about the transparency aspect. So having open communication and dialogue, trusting people to make really good decisions. I said earlier that I hire really smart people, and I have to trust that they're going to do a really good job, that they know what to do. And I have to give them that trust. And I think there's so many companies out there, especially since we've moved to this remote world, right, where they're installing technology to track your productivity and make sure that you're working. And it boggles my mind that companies would go to these lengths, right, to not trust their
Right.
team. And with transparency and openness, I think you can alleviate a lot of that. So I think
Hmm.
transparency is the second. And then the third is feedback, right? Like collecting and soliciting feedback from your teams. You have to have a continuous improvement mindset. Um, you can't be really stuck in this is the way we are going to do things, and
Or
not
we've always done it this way.
right.
Right.
Yeah, this is the way we're going to do it because we've always have. Mindset, you have to be willing to shift your mindset and do things differently, and take recommendations and suggestions. And sometimes that can be really hard, right? Especially like if you built something that means a lot to you and you think it's the best thing in the whole wide world, and somebody comes along and they're like, hey, you know what, here's a couple of improvements you can make.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like if you have a new benefits package, for example, right? Again, I work in HR, right? So there could be a brand new benefits package that I think it's like amazing. And somebody's like, hey, you know what would be really great is if we could do, and I'm like, uh-huh. Yep.
Hmm.
And there's a moment where you stop and you're like, okay. But uh, I'm not like this revolutionary HR leader, right? The ideas that I have come from the people who work for the companies that I support.
Hmm.
And it's, by listening and soliciting feedback and listening to their opinions and their ideas and their recommendations that have led to my ability to create these amazing cultures, and great companies.
That's great. That's great. Great, great advice in that. So, during the pandemic, I learned a lot about empathy because I was a very strict leader and wanted people to make sure they were right on time, make sure they were present in every meeting. And we run a remote company. So, even before the pandemic. Um, but tell us how you lead with empathy in this ever changing workplace, because sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it's easier. It just depends on the day, I guess. But, now I'm more empathetic to dogs and kids and everything happening on the phone call where I never used to be like that before. Tell me some of what did you learn about empathy during the pandemic?
Yeah. So I think I was in the same boat as you, where
Mm-hmm.
prior to the pandemic, I absolutely was that person who was
Mm-hmm.
like, why is so and so always coming in 30 minutes late, right?
Right.
What is going on? Why can't you get here on time?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after the pandemic and moving to a remote environment, um, I I learned a lot more about this whole work life integration
Mhm,
piece.
mhm,
And I think that's where the empathy starts to begin, is in the recognition that there is a work life integration. It is not a work life balance, no matter what anybody says. There are moments
mhm,
when work completely overtakes my life. There are
mhm,
moments when that happens. And it's odd. The balance is that work gets all of my attention. And
mhm,
then there are moments when my life requires and demands more attention, and that's okay too, right? And so I've learned that, if I am experiencing this, then it's clear that others are experiencing the same thing. And I think for me personally, I went through the pandemic with a 2-year-old
mhm,
who was no longer in school, um, sitting by my side, wanting to show her whatever her latest stuffy was that she had to
mhm.
all of my colleagues on Zoom calls and do show and share with everybody in my company.
Mhm.
So going through that myself, really helped me recognize that, oh my gosh, like this is what I've got going on, right? Like
Right, right.
what on earth are the rest of my team members going through?
True. Yeah.
And and then expanding that beyond, right? Like eventually kids went back to school, right? And all that. But there's still things that come up. And I've always been more of a kind of empathetic leader. At least I would like to think I have been. But my empathy it grew during
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic for
Right.
sure. And then it grew even more during various political situations that happened around
Mm-hmm.
the globe. Having a global workforce has been very trying over the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just really looking to understand what my team members are going through across the entire company has led to this higher degree of empathy
Nice. Yeah.
that I have.
That's very good. I mean, it's so true with the global organization. It doesn't even matter global. It's just putting yourself into their shoes and feeling what they're feeling, right? That's what's so important about being empathetic and not judging. Just
Right.
know that they are in a place that you can never imagine how they are feeling. So, really being empathetic, listening to them, giving them some grace is really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, people oftentimes they're like, well, I don't know how to be empathetic. Um, and it's just like the last thing you said really resonates, right? It is about giving people grace
Hmm.
and, allowing them to be them.
Hmm.
It's okay because no one is perfect. I had this conversation with my daughter, my now 4-year-old daughter last
Hmm.
night.
Hmm.
No one is perfect. We all have faults, but I still love you just
Hmm.
the way you are because I'm going to give you that grace. And that's really what it's all about.
That's great. That's great. So, Robin, on a personal note, who inspires you and why?
So this is a great question. You know, I find my inspiration from my team the
Hmm.
most.
Hmm.
And a lot of times you ask leaders this, right, and they may rattle off some
Hmm.
inspirational leader that's well known. But for me, my inspiration doesn't come from there. It comes from my team.
Hmm.
Um, and when I say team, I mean not just the team that I manage, but the individuals who work at my company.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is I see their resilience, right? Working in a tech startup is really, really hard, and the pace is really fast, and the
Hmm.
changes are nonstop. And and then I look at the adversity that my team has gone through over the last few years between pandemic, political situations, fraudulent elections, wars, displacement from their homes. And I'm like, wow, these people continue to show up and give it their all every day
Hmm.
in spite of all the adversity. And that provides me with this tremendous amount of inspiration, and it allows me to continue to um, like come to work every day and
Hmm.
keep going in spite of all of the changes and the difficulties, you know in a tech startup, and trying to build out an HR organization that is growing really, really fast.
Yeah, so true. So true. So I love that your team inspires you every day because I agree. I feel the same way. It's like it's my team that I get up in the morning to come to work for, get to my desk and do everything for them so that they can be successful, they can grow, they can I can help them in any way possible. But with so much going on in this world and add life to it, it is really impressive to see them show up every day, and really work hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so true. So I love to travel. And I always ask this question. It's a little bit selfish, so I can add maybe things to my bucket list.
Love it.
So, where's your most favorite place that you've traveled to and why?
So I am in love with a tiny little island off the coast of St. Martin called Anguilla.
Mm,
A
that
little
one's going
British.
on my list. I've never been there.
Oh my goodness. It is the most beautiful island. So it's very quaint. It's British. It is very quiet. So
That
why
I
do I love
love.
it?
Yeah, when you're shutting down, that's what you need so that you can reflect and you can think.
And there are 31 different beaches, and
Oh, wow.
every one of them has a different, like a different type of landscape to it. So you
Mm,
will have everything from pools of water, right? They look like crystal clear pools with not a single wave,
hmm.
to rocky ocean shores.
That is
And you
amazing.
can surf, and the island is really small. So you can get from one side of the island to the other in about 15 minutes. So it's not very big, and there's
Mhm.
amazing food, great restaurants, really friendly people. And it's really quiet. There was one year we went, and we were the only people on
Wow.
every beach that we went to, and this was
Wow.
before the pandemic. I was like, this is
A private
amazing.
beach just for you. I
Like,
love
I don't know
that.
if I'm
So,
supposed to
how do
say
you get
that.
there? How do you get there? Do you take a cruise or do you have to fly into? Where do you go? How do
Yeah,
you get
so
there?
there's two different ways to get there. So one is you can fly into St. Martin, and there is a
Mhm.
ferry that will take you to Anguilla. The ferry is about 20 minutes,
Okay.
pretty quick. And St. Martin has a large
Okay.
commercial airport.
Okay.
And then the other way is to fly directly into Anguilla, which is a
Oh.
much smaller airport. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but you can get there. They have direct flights from Puerto Rico. So if you can get to Puerto Rico, then you can get a
Yeah.
direct flight to
Oh,
Anguilla.
that's awesome. Definitely going on my list. It's something I want to see.
It's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, it is just the most beautiful island I've ever been on, Jennifer.
I
We
I
love it.
can't wait. I can't wait. It's going on my list. So maybe early next year. Is there a good time to go? What
So
time of the year?
I have been there in May, November, and over New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that New Year's was a little bit more crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, by crowded is all relative.
Crowded.
It's
Yeah.
all relative to having a beach by myself.
Mm-hmm.
The last week of November, entire beach to myself.
Wow.
Um, to like having to make reservations for a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
in December, like over the holidays, and then
How about me?
May is also beautiful. But as I learned last week, you could face hurricane season, could face the anomaly of an early
Mm.
hurricane season.
Okay.
So it is the beginning
So
of tropical.
November is your recommendation, really.
I would go with November. It's beautiful.
Okay. All right.
I
That's
may run
amazing.
into you on a beach.
Thank you, Robin. You won't have the beach to yourself now anymore. Oh, this was so much fun and such an honor to have you on. Thank you so much, Robin, for your time and contribution. I know our listeners will enjoy this episode very much. So in closing, what advice would you give to a woman considering a career in the tech industry?
Jennifer, it's also been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. My advice would be, don't give up.
Hmm.
If you want to work in tech, don't think that because you don't have the experience in technology that you can't get there. There are ways to either self learn, or you can go a very unconventional route like me, who started in a printing background. But don't give up. Don't settle. Don't give up, and keep trying.
That's great. Great advice. So Robin, share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Robin Corralez. And you can also find me on Facebook or Instagram. And it's also under Robin Corralez. I make myself pretty easy to find.
That's great. Well, Robin, thank you again. It was a pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate you, and hopefully you'll come back again sometime.
Sounds wonderful, Jennifer. I'd love to. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.